choosing us as a partner on this project and endeavor that you're going to take it on. So,
Welcome.
yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, all of the handholds on the estimate or in your bill of materials is starting here with the 500, the AXS 500, the AXS 400.
Okay. Do you have spec sheets
Yes.
printed by chance? Because
Yeah.
I want to put them on the product so I can.
Why don't I?
What can I do to? Going to print something?
I think I might have them all in my truck.
Okay.
But if I just email you a copy, you print them off, and then they'll all be associated with it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they're in a previous email.
Yeah, I have quite a few of them.
Yeah.
If not all of them.
So,
yeah.
Finishing up over here with our 320T boundary box. And then our optional, what I've proposed as your optional bigger vault for instances where you don't know what's going to be coming down the road, just to be prepared for what if. This could be used in a spot where you cross other maybe long haul transport companies or whatever the case might be, large intersections that are prone to construction and reconstruction. I like a bigger vault in those cases, just so you can store more things and adapt to whatever might happen down the road. That's our RFW 2436 by 30. So it's 24 inches wide, 36 inches long, I'm talking about the top dimensions, and 30 inches deep. It is a flared wall, that's why we named it the rectangular flared wall vault. So the footprint on top is your standard 24 by 36. Flared out where you need most of your space anyway, to a 30-48. 30 inches deep, 48 inches long.
And why would we need that?
For those cases where you may come across, as you're going along in your project, you're going to come across areas that are not developed yet, but have the potential to be developed. Or maybe a neighborhood that they may have had it platted out for 70 homes, but they put cul-de-sacs at the end, and a lot of times those cul-de-sacs are there with the intent of possibly extending that road out. So this gives you an area to store more fiber and just be able to adapt to whatever may happen. Major road crossings are another area. If you've had experience at this, you know what I'm talking about. It's just a location where you can store excess fiber or put in even a splice case, and it's adaptable to whatever may happen down the road.
Got it.
Yeah. To come in after the fact and dig out where you've already got fiber and active fibers on that cable, to remove that is risky. To have to go in and put a larger case in or a larger vault in down the road. This just allows you to, and trust me, this happens, it's never planned for, but as somebody who's done a lot of design work and engineered systems and had to plan for things like that, it's good to have a plan in place for the unexpected. Most of what you're going to be doing, probably 98% of it, is going to be running down a 2-lane road, whether that be gravel or blacktop, and picking up a home here or there, if you're lucky, 4 or 5 at a time. That sounds like a majority.
Why not put one of those in right next to that one?
Right next to this one?
Expand it, just expand what's already in the ground by putting in another case or access point. I don't know what you call those boxes other than the number you gave them.
The RFW?
Yeah, what is that box in general, generically speaking? Is that a handhold?
Yes, a handhold.
Okay.
Yes, okay.
So the first thing that crosses my mind if I had to expand is just putting in another handhold and using that first one as its junction or something to get to the next one.
Yeah, that's a good question. And mostly the reason why I never did that is because real estate in areas that are under construction or have the potential to grow, there's not a lot of available space to add 2 of your vaults. Now you have 2 vaults that you have to, maintain long-term. So, like I said, I don't think this is going to be used a lot, but highway crossings, areas where, you know, where you're seeing some population growth, because as you're going from town to town, of course it's rural in between, but in those towns is where you might want to put an occasional larger vault just
So
to cover yourself.
for a bid or budget, would you say I want to have 10% of the handholds that we're going to be getting, the vault that's that large, or 5%? I mean, how do you do it ahead of time when you're purchasing?
Well, having not seen the designs, it'd be hard for me to put a number on that.
Because we get the
We'll
reason
send you
why
the-
it's important, but how at this planning phase where you're obviously budgeting.
I suggested putting a number in 25 to 50. You're not locked into utilizing all 50 of those.
I think that's like 2% of your total or something.
Yeah.
On your BOM.
And again, not seeing the overview and like, you know, zooming in on, okay, here's a town here that we're gonna have maybe 500 folks in there. Not covered by your grant probably, but all this middle mile in between is, you may choose to build that town. It might be a competitive town, you might have another provider there. But I would say you're probably going to end up feeding those towns. Again, we haven't even talked about that. In a case like that, coming into a town or where I have a major, maybe 2 highways cross.
Like for our investors want us to go not just the RDOF build, they want us to consider, okay, you've already passed that 5-mile stretch, if you can pick up another 100 homes. So if there's, you know, if we had only the smaller vault plan, there may be reasons to,
Yeah.
in some of those, yeah, totally get it.
I think that 2 to 5% rule is going to apply. Again, I'm just throwing a number out there. I'm taking a guess because I've seen a lot of rural projects and I know what they do. This is a common product in these situations.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I invited you to the Dropbox that the contractors are using that has the map books in it.
Oh, okay.
So I'm hoping that when you get back, the two of you can help me by looking at the design, because we were under the impression Fibersmith had already given you that design, but the map books are complete for this 218-mile build. What you're not gonna see is the engineered design for the entire county that we have.
I'll be
But-
able to take a much better educated guess by looking at that, because as somebody who has, you know, like I said, gotten into these situations where I didn't do enough initially or I'm dealing with it after the fact, somebody else that designed it who under-engineered it. And so, and again, you got to make these decisions. Where do we feel budget-wise comfortably with this? But it does cost a lot of money, a lot more money than it would have cost to do it right the first time. So we have to go back and place another one. Now we have to tie these two together. It's just a lot more work, and it's prone for errors, put it that way. I'm not saying I've never placed 2 vaults next to each other. I've had to at certain times. But those are the experiences that lead me to recommend having a plan for a larger vault that can accommodate whatever may come down the road. I always say never underestimate how much your network is going to get utilized. And when you build it, you're gonna see more and more opportunities, more than you initially planned for. So
Hopefully.
that's that. That's starting to be. This one here is just for kind of display purposes. I mock up a competitor's. I have a competitor's splice enclosure, a common one that would have been used in your situation. And we have our 144 count armored fiber mocked into it. This is just to display how much fiber we can get wrapped up inside of here. And there's about a 50-foot tail in here. So
basically, this is one of the kind of questions that was always bugging me about these vaults. How do we work on those vaults? So you expect there to be a splicing container in there with the cables going to it, and that's being able to lift out into a covered shelter so they could work on it.
this would typically go, most of your splice contractors are gonna have a trailer that this tail is gonna come out into,
Okay.
and that's where they're gonna work on.
All right, got it.
When he's done, all that wraps in there real nice,
Mhm.
and he puts it away.
So the other question I have is I noticed that there are duct pre-prepared
Little knockouts.
points to connect to.
Yes.
This one doesn't seem to have that.
Yeah, so our round vaults are adaptable to microduct and multi-path microduct applications. And a lot of times in a microfiber microduct system, they'll run everything horizontally. They won't sweep them up. But since your network is going to be direct buried, a majority of it is, you probably won't be utilizing those. And I think your standards are probably, did you
come
say
up with
36?
The bottom of it, you're thinking?
Yeah,
Yes.
I
yeah,
see.
just sweep up into the bottom.
I got it.
It's just, it's adaptable to however a network is designed and
So
built.
that's got to be watertight.
Yes,
Yes.
these are all IP68. Yep, designed to be buried below grade
So,
or submerged in water for certain periods of time.
so we've got to have a water pump or something with us at all times, huh?
Well, I would say not necessary, no.
No?
With the way we're going to install these with a gravel base, unless you're in a swamp, you're gonna have natural drainage in there anyway.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah, well, certainly in very wet environments, you know, and that's where I choose, you know, if I'm working with my contractor and I'm going down an area that I know is wet, well, if I have a natural waterway down the side of the road, I want to make sure I go to the back of the right of way near the fence line where it tends to come up
Get
a
on
little
top
bit
of the rock.
and get a little bit out of that waterway. So this one shows a 6-inch extension. This is an optional unit that can be added to the AXS 500. Yeah. In your case, you're not going to need it because the splice case that we're working with, the AUC 500, fits perfectly right inside of here with the 144 and other cables. So this is a system that has been tried and true. I mean,
Along with the 50 feet of cable.
Absolutely. If you think of a reel of fiber, that base, the core of that reel is actually a little bit tighter than that. This cable is designed to be wound tighter. So in this amount, I'm just saying, if you look at a reel of cable, how much fiber, the lengthwise, is in that much of the base of the reel? It's a lot. So you could fit a 100-foot tail in here. I'm not saying I would. I would say a 50-foot tail, which is about 100 feet. Typically on these, I recommend about 95 at the most. 85 would be 85 feet would be a good reasonable option.
Okay, you wanna,
That's enough to get your 8 or 10 feet inside of the closure for your mid sheath, and then you'll have about a 40-45 foot loop or tail that'll come out. So I can get 40 to 45 feet away from the vault into a trailer. Or I may sometimes have to go over the ditch to the side of the road where the splice trailer can get.
okay, this is the 500.
Okay. Yep, AXS 500.
That's the I'm giving him 3 printouts.
Oh.
And so I just want to make sure we know which one that is.
Okay. Yep, this is
500?
500 here. Since you're videoing, I think one other thing to point out here is that the round lids do not fall in. So the locators, the splicers are gonna like that a lot. They don't have to worry about damaging, you know, some of the smaller diameter cables that you have. The 48 and 24 count will be in here as well. And in rectangular vaults and the smaller diameter fibers, it is a major concern of dropping that lid in on your cables and damaging the asset. So the round lids are a very important part of the features of these vaults. Very key. Let's see. So we talked about a little bit about what's going to go in the 500s. A lot of your slack loops, regular storage that you're going to have in the system, where this is a lot of times where, and again, in the rural, intersections tend to get worked on. You know, whatever may occur, once in a while you want to put some slack in your system. And you may also want to put slack in a location that you expect to possibly someday need a connection to build down. So intersections are a big thing out in the rural. There may not be any homes on the intersection, but I like to put a slack loop, sometimes on both sides. In case they do any work in there, I at least have a tail, and it reduces the amount of cable that I have to bury to accommodate that road expansion or construction. So at intersections out there, this can be used for slack loops.
One question there,
Yeah.
sorry. On that kind of specification, I don't recall seeing that in my typicals, but it may not need to be at this phase, but obviously during construction, I want to make sure that's in there. Where do you typically put that in your directions to the contractor?
Again, a lot of times this is all determined on a walkout. And sometimes I could use Google Earth or the whatever GIS system I have, and I can evaluate just, you know, from my desk, and I've done that quite a bit. But sometimes you need to go out there and evaluate, and it's in locations where you have a, let's say you're going down a gravel road and you come to an intersection, but I don't have any homes there, and I don't have any designed laterals that go down that crossroad. In that location there, or in that situation, that's where I would put slack loop. Absolutely put slack on either side. One side at least, depending on how you feel about it, both sides could warrant it. And again, it would all depend on the situation.
But that's also going to control our BOM. So if our BOM doesn't have that amount of slack loop in our spec, I mean, then what we're sending out to the bidders this next 2 weeks needs to have some of that consideration in it. If
Yeah,
it's
I would
45
expect,
feet for whatever, every 10th corner or something, it could add up.
yeah, I would put more like 100.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's more of a typical amount, 80 to 100. Per slack loop, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of times it was 120 per design. Overhead situations were longer, but underground, I wouldn't go less than 100. And you'll fit 100 feet in here, nice. It'll be just fine. Yeah. Let's see.
So you've got I'm missing a spec sheet, so you've got the
You
400.
got the 400 next. Yep, the next one would be the 320T-S.
Yeah, I don't know if I have that one, but I'm gonna double check right now. And that's,
This is the 400 here.
right, switch.
Okay. In the 500, we have proposed the majority of your larger splice cases, that's what they're gonna go in. So your 144s, your laterals, anywhere you have the OC 500 splice case, it'll be paired with the AXS 500, and occasionally in those one-off situations, the RFW, the rectangular flared wall, the bigger one. That's gonna be a more rare thing. But your bigger splice cases are gonna go into the 500 90-some% of the time. That's the combination. Stepping down to the 400, the XS 400, for your design and what we had proposed is the Amphibox 48. And this is going to go in here just fine. It's got a little rack mounted on the side, so you can mount it in there. And typically, you guys, you're going to be using this fiber here called micro module, and it has got a little tone wire, if you can see that. I might have thought I had some already prepped, but I'll just prep it real quick. Peel that tracer wire back. Oh, and of course I didn't bring my tools in, my other tools.
What do you mean?
My my fiber tools. If you want to pause your video, I'll go get them.
Yeah.
What's in the bed?
The blue Joanard bag,
Okay.
and it's in one of the red boxes. I apologize. I'll show you in this one here because I've already got it opened up. There it is too. But this is our 48 count micro module. It can go into the M4 splice case, but a majority of what you'll do is just a little ring cut with 4 homes hooked up. Same thing with this. We unscrew that. We get to the bottom. Your fiber will enter through one of these ports on the bottom. Your slack storage is here. They come they route right up this channel into the splice trays, and typically you're probably only going to have 1, maybe 2 splice trays in here. It'll come fully loaded, but you're only going to need 1 or 2. It'll be fully loaded with 4 splice trays. So if you had to do a butt splice on the 48 count, you could do it in this.
So why are we only going to use 2 trays there? Because that's primarily for 24.
Well, this one's for 48 or 24.
Okay.
But it's a number of homes you're going to feed. So typically you're going to maybe have, if you're lucky, in the rural especially, 4, 6, 7 homes.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you have more than 4 homes, you're going to jump up to this one. And so this can feed up to 12 homes actually with a ring cut or a mid sheath. I'm sorry, I throw a lot of terms out there. And we can go down that path of defining terms and acronyms and all that too.
So
But
basically, you want to be sure that you're working in an area where you have a really good idea of what the potential count will be of the number of homes.
yeah, now
If you see 2 and you think, okay, well, there's probably going to be at least 5 more, then you're going to have to jump up.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that maxes out at 4.
4 drops, yes, max.
Okay.
These 2, it would work. It wouldn't be the easiest thing, but you could transfer, if this is a 40, you could transfer that. If you had a 5th or a 6th, you could transfer and upgrade it to this.
Right, yeah, it takes some work, but
It would take some work, yes, but it is
not
possible
all
to do.
day.
No.
Exactly. Right.
So they because the components are removable as they are, we are able to transfer them over. Now, of course, when things are routed through, then that makes it, a little not seamless, but if you did have an outage, if you had to cut a fiber, it would only be until you could just get it spliced right back up. So fairly simple fix. So they are able to be upgraded, these 2 units here. I think after we get done talking about vaults, then we can come back and really work on splice enclosures. Okay, but the Amphibox 48 is going to be typically placed into the AXS 400 right here with that mounting bracket. A majority of what you're going to see in your network is the M4. Another efficient, compact little splice closure. I don't know yet. I haven't seen the data on this yet, but if you're using a connectorized drop or if you're going to hard splice all your drops. If you
I thought it was hard splicing,
Okay.
but then there was that weird thing on the bottom where it showed connectorized drops. So we're hoping to catch you at 3 o'clock with Bob and Sarah. They're confirming to call, so that we can just go through those couple
Excellent.
questions that
Great.
we had while you guys are here.
This splice enclosure does either or. We'll have it equipped with a connectorized panel in here or not. That's the
Okay.
only difference. So the price is the same.
Question, you keep coming up with these, either this one or that one. So I'm wondering, and I'm thinking, well, why not just work with a 12 in every situation? I mean, what's
This one here?
Yeah.
I
What's
think
to prevent us from doing that as opposed to the 4 which has its limit, obviously,
Money?
of 4.
Just cost, yeah.
because of
Cost.
The cost.
how much is the cost difference?
This one is about twice as much as this one. Not only that, the
But it
M4,
handles twice as many locations. I
3
mean,
times as
4
many.
is a kind of a small quantity.
absolutely a valid point. I
But if
think,
you're running down a rural road where there's farmland, I mean, like so many of these, it's one
you
house.
you can find thousands of reasons not to. I'm just asking, why are we not thinking in terms of
It's-
a larger box?
I think it's because cost, and to really get, typically in projects of this scale, the bottom line is, going to be a
It's
huge
king.
factor. So the bottom line in this, in a rural situation, you have a home here. On our trip down here, we went miles between, I think is it Canton or Conrad?
Yes.
Conrad, Clinton, what else?
Oh, coming from the north?
Every
Springfield.
Every
Yeah.
pole had a large, it was an ADSS system, a large splice enclosure mounted to the pole. I said, these people this company never heard of running a span down and over and utilizing that closure that was one span away. I could not believe it, and we joked about, I won't tell you, but not very efficient.
You also said something about the vault size.
Yes, that's what I was gonna get. So not only does this one cost about half as much as that one, or maybe even a third, it goes into a vault that is about a third of the cost. So it really increases the cost. A larger vault obviously costs a little bit more money, but it also costs more to install.
Yeah, but I'm thinking about all the circumstances that we will run into, because these are rural areas. We have a subdivision not too far from here that blew up overnight. You would have never guessed it was going to happen, but it did. No one would have ever imagined that.
Mm-hmm.
And there must be probably 100 homes in that subdivision.
Wow.
I mean, they've got capacity for that many. It's probably not that many now. It's probably only like 50. But you would have never thought that was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And most of these are happening around larger urban areas, like around Little Rock, North Little Rock area. But you still have that coming up in Scott, Arkansas. We have subdivisions growing out there that it was like, well, holy crap. Who would have ever thought that this was going to blow up like this?
Exactly.
And next thing you know, you've got more homes than you can deal with. But then again, it is a question of cost. And we're never going to be able to second guess every situation. But if we look at our maps of the existing design, we might be able to second guess some of that just because of the way it looks. And if you have kind of an eye for progress of that nature, then you might be able to second guess it. But
So
otherwise we're going to end up with a lot of retrofits within 5 or 10 years, probably.
true, and that's not uncommon. You always try to minimize it, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I would say though, the labor involved to switch from the 320 to the 400 is much less than it's going to be to switch from a 500 to an RFW.
Yeah, but
That's a lot more dirt, and
I'm not really too worried about that as opposed to this level.
probably more common. But I would suggest that it would be easier to switch the vault out to the larger vault, and
Under the circumstances,
Yeah.
you only have 4.
I'm going to get into some aspects of the micro, and because you're putting it in duct, the advantage that's going to afford you to adapt to situations, because leaving slack and micro and getting it from 1,000 feet away is easy. I just pull on it.
Yeah.
It travels through the micro duct
Sure.
very, very effortless.
So that brings up another question then, because I'm thinking about the multiple situations I'm likely to get into. Let's suppose I have the smaller vault in there, and what's to prevent me from moving over 40, 50 feet, or a lot, the width of a lot, and putting in another small vault?
Terry, that's a very good point. What the microduct and microfiber allow you to do is, if I had a house pop up, let's say out in the rural areas, and they want to build another home. This happened, I've seen this happen a lot. They had their starter home that they lived in for 20 years, but they don't want to leave their property. They want to build their dream home a little bit further back and, off the road a ways, right?
Yeah.
That happens. Well, we can access that 10 by 14 duct anywhere along the road or the right of way. And I can split that duct open, pull slack from either direction, and put a closure in, just like that.
Slack issues critical.
Having flexibility in your network is critical, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely, being able to adapt, like you're saying, because that is a very likely scenario out there where they, like I said, they have their smaller home, they get better established, 20 years down the road, they want to build that bigger home back, on the back side of the lot, but they keep that home up there for maybe their mother-in-law or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I don't know what our spec calls for in terms of slack inside of just a standard vault. I mean, you're talking about 45, 50 feet just to get it to the trailer. But if we have to have slack in there, we have to have some kind of notion of what that is going to look like. It seems like to me every time we have a vault, we better have slack in it.
Yes.
Definitely.
Beyond
Yes.
the length I need to get out to the trailer.
Yes.
I wonder if I could draw just a little picture for you. And again, the BOM or the spec will give you, but there's kind of like a rule. So if you've got this much cable on a drum of cable, a portion of that cable is made up for slack. And then you've got a rule that stipulates at your start of your project, you've got slack. At the end of your project, you've got more slack. Now between your start and your end, you're going to run out of cable because you're going to have to splice. Now you've got a house over here that you want to connect. That can be within your drum of cable. When you connect to this house, there must be slack. There's going to be a manhole, there must be slack. Now in between that start and that build there, what Mike is saying is if someone decides, I'm popping another house up here, then with your live network as it is, we shut down and then we pull back from that slack. So we minus some slack there, or we minus some slack there to be able to feed to this house. And then when we put a manhole here, there must be slack as well. So that's your rule. And literally, if you are having anywhere, here might not be a house here, but you have a manhole because you've run out of cable. So you have to splice cable. And again, there's slack there again. So it can be a percentage. You can say that you have 100 feet here and you have 100 feet here. You have a BOM already that stipulates how many home passes you're going to have. So that's 100 feet, 100 feet, 100 feet. But then, where do you splice? Where there isn't a house but a manhole, every single manhole must have slack. And it must be enough to make up for if you're building out more, that house can take from one of those to some slack as well. It's very rudimentary, but it's a picture that kind of says to you how much slack. And the more you have, the better. Because if you're having a team that are not very well versed in splicing, you're doing a 144 fiber cable. If he breaks any of his fibers, he needs to pull back some more slack so he can start over, or at least pull back one of his tubes so he can activate that tube again. So you even have to think about how efficient are your splices, so that you can make a percentage available for that mistake that happens as well.
Clearly, this talks to the idea of if you're underground, you probably want all of those branches to be in duct for sure. So you have enough flexibility to replace that if you had to. Because it sounds like to me, eventually, you're gonna end up with a situation where you gotta replace one of those runs somewhere.
Not replace, just cut into it.
Cut into it and add.
So what you would do, yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe you could add, but at the end point, let's just say the end point is, it keeps going. But we have the end point, and then out there in the middle, we realize that we've got this subdivision that's about to start up, and it's going X direction, and we can accommodate it. But in order to get there, I'm gonna have to add more from end point to some middle point, call it zero, or zebra
So
or
you
something.
just add, so this is a duct as well as cable, this is duct.
Not on the 144. The 144 is direct buried.
Oh.
The only cable, so that was the only,
Okay.
I so appreciate you drawing that out because it's very, very helpful. I was struggling
On
putting
48
it
and
into
20,
words.
yeah, and 24, yeah.
On the 48 and 24 though, that will be in duct.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
But the main backbone 144 is going to be direct buried.
okay.
So that'll present its own challenges in instances that you're describing. But everything Michelle is saying is absolutely applicable
Yeah,
to
no,
the
I get
24 and 48
Yeah.
counts.
No, I understand that. I get it. I mean, I really do.
And honestly, I don't know. We could come up with 1,000 ideas and add to the total bottom line cost of
Yeah,
your
next thing
project.
you know,
So,
Can you give us on here, I've got the pricing here for Terry, just to see like the difference between this splice case and box and this splice case and box.
Okay. Okay, right here, the M4 splice case, $39.
Okay.
And the,
And that includes the jacket, the whole unit.
oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. This whole,
Some
but
people
obviously
have
without
the
any
jacket
fibers.
separately, so I just wanted to make sure. Some people sell this separately. You can order this differently and this is separate, so I just want to make sure you were talking about this whole unit.
This whole unit
Yeah.
is all priced as one unit.
Okay.
Yeah, yep.
$39?
$39.
Who wants to buy a whole bunch of guts and no box?
They have
And,
different,
and the pricing on the 320Ts is, because of the quantity, is even better than I thought, $29. The
Oh, for
we-
this
because-
29?
no, because we have so many, the
manhole, for the manhole that it will go in,
Okay.
okay?
Okay.
So that combination is,
$60.
it's a great deal.
And then this you said is twice the cost?
That's what we're
That
looking
is
at.
96.
96.
So it's,
3 times.
3 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then the vault is 143. So,
And that's
Still-
this one?
no, I'm sorry, the 400.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the answer is buy a shitload of the little ones and have them every 100 yards.
But really, even the cost for your deployment on these materials is lower than any other network out there
So
that
we-
I know of.
Oops, so,
With the quality of closures that you're getting, put it that way. I know some people will go on Amazon and buy a sprinkler box and put that out there, but guess what? In 2 or 3 years, they're out there again replacing it.
so that's not our quantities. I'm just curious, on our bomb, I wanted you to look and show us exactly, because the descriptions are funky,
Okay.
which one of those
Oh,
are.
okay.
Because I want to
Can I
match.
write on this one?
Yes, please. I want to
I
match
just-
that bomb up with our,
Thank you.
but I was just curious if, so you could show Terry, for this 218 miles,
Well, yeah, so
This
right here
is the specific bomb.